And helping us better understand that long road to peace is Maurice Jr. Labelle. He is a visiting scholar and sessional instructor at the U of S, specializing in U.S. Middle East relations. He joins us via Skype from Saskatoon today. Good morning, Maurice.
Good morning, Holly.
Now, Maurice, with tension so high, you think of that bus bombing in Tel Aviv just yesterday morning. Are you surprised that the ceasefire was finally reached yesterday?
I was somewhat surprised when I did see the news. There's no question there's been a lot of tension in the region and a lot of people have been suffering, but rhetoric has been very strong.
Now, Maurice, the UN's been advocating for a ceasefire, but the U.S. comes in and it seems to happen. How big of an impact was Hillary Clinton being in that region, making this ceasefire happen?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure exactly how much impact she did have. Secretary of State Clinton was important. However, it's important to acknowledge that this deal was brokered by one state, Egypt. Mm-hmm. Its Prime Minister, Mohammed Morsi, was the main orchestrator of the deal. The United States had a role to play, but it was a secondary role to play.
Now, we've heard that there were threats of an Israeli ground invasion. The last time that happened in 2008, 2009, there was 1,400 Palestinians killed. Do you think that this could have been the same result if a ceasefire wasn't reached yesterday?
There was a high likelihood. There's no question, again, that tension and rhetoric was very strong. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu openly admitted that he was willing to engage with the idea of a ground invasion, and my understanding also is that Israeli forces were stationed and ready for such an operation.
Now, speaking of Prime Minister Netanyahu, he said if the ceasefire fails, Israel will put in more military action, but he is hoping for a long-term security solution. Is this believable, though, understanding that these two sides have been at war for decades?
Well, the first thing I think that's important to understand is that this is a ceasefire, not a peace agreement. This is a temporary agreement, and I think I'm skeptical as to whether or not it will be an everlasting peace, just because for two reasons. One is the issue of the Israeli blockade of Gaza. We'll have to wait and see in the next 24 hours how Israel deals with this issue. It's promised to open the borders and allow greater flow of humanitarian supplies, especially construction materials, given the fact that the intense bombing in the last 8 days has had tremendous impact on Gazan infrastructure. And the second issue that leads me to be a little pessimistic is the failure, at least in public anyhow, of Israel and the United States, for that matter, of acknowledging Hamas. Hamas, as we all know, was democratically elected by Gazans in 2006, and since then has been the subject of much diplomatic isolation. So until Hamas's authority is acknowledged and Hamas and Palestinians feel like they're being respected, mm-hmm. I have to admit I'm skeptical.
All right, thank you for your insight this morning and for waking up for us early, Maurice.
Thank you.
Maurice Labelle from the University of Saskatchewan.